Welcome to Thrive. Today we unravel the threads of story ministry, where personal narratives intertwine to create a tapestry of healing and support in the realm of mental health and substance abuse. Join us as we delve into the heart of advocacy with our special guest, Jacob Bowker from Story Ministry. I'm Natty,
I'm Veda.
and we are here to thrive.
Today we have a very special guest joining us, Jacob Bowker.
Mhm.
Yep.
Yes, Jacob
Got it.
Bowker. And he's from Story Ministry. Jacob is a father of four boys, an author, a podcaster, mental health coach, life coach, mental health advocate, and founder and member of Story Ministries. Welcome, Jacob.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Jacob, tell us about Story Ministry. What is it? What does it do? What is Story Ministry?
Yeah, so it started about 3 years ago. I have a 24-year-old son in a mental health hospital, and I realized that people and individuals with mental health or even addiction, it's not necessarily just their problem or issue, it's actually the whole family's. And through his journey, I realized that there wasn't that many faith-based resources for families struggling with mental health and addiction. So it caused problems and stuff throughout our family. Me and my wife at the time were so focused on trying to fix our oldest son that we kind of neglected our younger children and our marriage and ourselves and our self health and everything too. And it ended up in a divorce, which we're good friends now, and both of us are a lot happier. So it wasn't necessarily a bad thing, but I felt like God was telling me at the time, like, because I was kind of complaining about what there wasn't, that God said, well, why don't you make something that is? So that's kind of how Story
Hmm.
Ministry came along. It's a faith-based ministry for families struggling with mental health and recovery.
Okay.
Awesome. Why do you think that there's still a stigma addressing mental health in the faith community?
I think it's not just the faith community. I think it's just the community in a whole, that it's a lack of education and a lack of people talking about it. You could have a cold or you could have cancer and you could go tell the church or community and everybody wants to line up and help you. But if you mention that you have mental health, they just, a lot of people just aren't educated about what it really is. They think of it as like a broad spectrum, to where they just put it in a, put it in a box of mental health is somebody in a mental health hospital or talking to themselves on the streets, to where it could be stress, anxiety, loneliness, depression. It could just be a whole wide range of different things that people just aren't aware of. But 1 in 4 of Americans struggle with it at some point in their life. And I'd say pastors to everybody else struggles with it at some point themselves. It's just something that we don't really talk about because it's putting a label on us, to where it's really just our mind health. And we want our physical health and we work at our bodies, but what about the thoughts we think? What about the way that we feel? What about the way that we think? And that's our mental health. And it's really nothing really more than that, of just, you have anxieties, you have stress, you have all these other things, and it's all right to have those. But what we need to do is talk about it more, make more people aware, just so they can be more conscious about it, but also help each other heal. Because too often people struggling with these things actually isolate themselves, and when you isolate yourself,
Mhm.
it's hard to heal the things that you hide. So if you're hiding something
Right.
that's going on, it's hard to go get help. Not only is it hard to get help, it's also hard to heal from those because you're trying to do it alone. And healing alone or recovering alone is really hard to do.
Right. Right.
I noticed that you have licensed clinicians as part of your ministry. So I was going to ask you, what is the clinical approach of the program? How is it? Group sessions, individual sessions? What is it that? How is the program developed?
So our licensed professionals that work with us actually help us create resources. They can also be a
Mhm.
resource if families need therapy, but they actually help guide us on how to create the best resources for the people that we're trying to help at the same time. Um,
Okay.
I feel our approach is a family approach. I personally try to help a lot of people hands on and head on. with just helping the people with the mental health. But what I realize is it causes a lot of my own mental health where their families and their loved ones will almost do anything to help heal them or help get them better. And sometimes the people struggling with mental health or addiction don't know that they need help or don't want to accept the
Mm-hmm.
help that's coming because they're either stuck in their addiction or they're struggling with their problems so much it's kind of hard to step outside of that box. So what we do is with our licensed therapists and counselors, we help create resources that actually get people to process, and it includes the whole family. So we try to go the whole family approach because when we get everyone together and we help the family create healthy boundaries, we help the family not neglect the other people who are in the family, like the siblings of the person struggling or just the other family members. Also, just help them become empowered and allow them to become stronger. What we've realized is it helps the individual become stronger, but it helps the whole family get healthy. And that's where we've seen the most transformation and the best results. So, really, the licensed therapists are to help guide us. So, when we're writing books, usually most books we write start with the story. They're all 12 weeks. So, most of them, not all of them, but most of them are 12 weeks. And then they start with the story to help you get in the shoes of the person who's struggling or identify with them at least. Sometimes it triggers a couple things just because you hear some stories and you relate so much to it. And then what we do is we have topics that we discuss afterwards that help you process the things that you've gone through because a lot of people have gone through things, but the thing is they've never processed what they've gone through. Even talking to a therapist, maybe you go once a week or a couple times a month. But the truth of the matter is there's only so much you could process when when you go for an hour a week or whatever. So what we try to do is help them process what they're going through and come to a realization that there is help, that they're not alone, and that there is healthy coping mechanisms. And then at the end of our, so each of our books for each week starts with a story, the topic, which helps you process. And then it also includes Bible verses, which includes what God says about it all. Because
Mm-hmm.
all in all, that's the most important thing. I've tried a lot
Mm-hmm.
of stuff with my own family and my own son, that we try to heal him and go to all these doctors, but a lot of it wasn't faith based. So you're just getting based
Mm-hmm.
off of what the doctor says and not really what God's saying about it. And nothing
Mm-hmm.
wrong with it. I mean, professional help is really good. Medications are definitely
Right.
needed in some circumstances, but a lot of times and too often it feels like what they're really giving the solution is just another pill, and they're going to try different pills and try different dosage of pills until they find something that works, where a lot of it is just finding healthy coping mechanisms, finding healthy ways to heal and process what you've been through, and finding healthy ways to create boundaries within your family, because a lot of us haven't been through it before. If you've never been through it, how do you know what to do? It's not like a thing
Right.
where you've like been trained in school. You've learned from the people around you, and usually the things you learn from the people around you are unhealthy ways to cope and not the healthy ways to
Mm-hmm.
cope. And one thing we're also trying to do is build awareness for everybody out there, but also try to get more awareness in the school. So at some point, somebody said we need to teach these people in school what physical education is. So they created PE, which is an
Mm-hmm.
amazing thing. PE is really good. Take care of your physical health because it's about the whole body. If your physical health isn't,
Right.
if you're not healthy physically, it affects your mental health. Same with your
Right.
spiritual and everything else. So if your spiritual health isn't strong, and your physical health isn't strong, it affects your mental health, and vice versa. If your mental health and your physical health aren't good, it affects your spiritual health, and so on and so forth. So what we try to do is just try to advocate and try to get some programs into school and see what we could do. We're starting with the teachers because to get a whole new curriculum, you have to go to the governor's office, you have to have all these tests, you
Mm-hmm.
have to have all these things, which there is data out there that's starting to support it more, but we don't have it all
Mm-hmm.
yet. So what we're trying to do is educate the teachers and staff because every couple of years they
Mm-hmm.
have to get what's called continuing education. So if we could work with them
Correct.
on offering that as some of their continuing education, then we could help educate the teachers more, and then we could eventually help educate the students. But it's not just the students that struggle with it; they're just the young ones who could learn a little bit easier. It's the teachers, the staff, the principal, everybody who struggles with it. Just like inside the church, it's the pastors, the staff, the
Mm-hmm.
congregation, and everybody who struggles with mental health. So it's not just trying to put a box and like, hey, we just need to help these kids. But it's easier to try to be proactive than it is to be reactive in mental health. It's easier to try to teach a kid while they're young than try to fix them when they're adults.
Right. So the way your program operates, are people staying there and then they come outside and continue the program, or they are at home and come every day? How does that work?
So we offer groups. We also offer, one of our things that we're trying to do is actually just empower the churches. So, because
Okay.
ours is faith-based, so what we try to do is we try to educate the churches, partner with the churches. First thing we do is educate them and
Oh.
train them. Then the second thing we do is give them the resources and then mentor them, because
I
we
get it.
realize that the people struggling or teaching the mental health or like hosting the groups, they could
Mm-hmm.
eventually start struggling with their own mental health. So it's not just training them and teaching them and saying, hey, here you go. You guys are on your own.
I
But what we
see.
actually do is try to mentor them. And what we do is mentor them afterwards. So we try to get it into the churches to where they could offer weekly groups, small groups, Bible study groups within it. And that's why each of our books are designed as 12 weeks. So it's a quarter for a church. And then we have different subjects
Mm-hmm.
that they could, right now we have about 20 books that they could choose and pick from,
Mm-hmm.
and decide which one's going to be the best fit for them. So we're trying to really go the small groups now. But as far as the
Mm-hmm.
coaching, what we do is we partner with usually the therapists, counselors, even the doctors. And
Mm-hmm.
like, let's just take, for example, they meet with the therapist once a week. We'll partner with the therapist with their permission. And then what we do is we come up and help them implement what the therapist has talked to them about healthy coping mechanisms and how to implement those in their daily lifestyle. Because so what we do is just we try to partner with the therapist and help them implement the actual strategies of what the doctors or the therapist are telling them, because if we've never
Mm-hmm.
done it before, somebody could give you advice, but if you really don't know how to implement that in your daily life, you're still going to struggle with it.
Mm-hmm.
So what we do is walk
Yeah.
along beside them as the coach. They have more access to us. They could text us, they could call us on a more regular basis compared to a therapist just going in once a week, or their doctors going in
Mm-hmm.
for, once a month or a checkup or whatever it is. But we just really walk with them and help them understand what they're dealing with, and then try to find more creative ways to deal with it. We do have a studio. So a lot of times we'll take them in the studio, we'll podcast with them, we'll make YouTube videos with them. We write a lot of books, so we'll help them write books. We'll get them to journal. We'll just find creative ways to get them healthy and get them to find more, different ways to find healthy coping mechanisms compared to what they're used to doing or what they've always been conformed to doing.
That's awesome.
No, I love what I'm hearing, because when I heard about it, I thought it was like a ministry in one place where you were doing services. But what I like about this is you guys are serving the community,
Yes.
because since you're implementing it already into the church, that helps in several ways. Once, it helps the church get involved
Yeah.
in the stigmatizing mental health, since they are the ones providing the actual service. The people who are getting the service are with their church community,
Yeah.
which it helps better than, like you said, with a stranger, because it's the same people that they do community with. And you can reach more people because you're implementing it in different churches. So yeah, this is absolutely great.
It is.
Yeah, and for me personally, to be honest, when I was struggling, the first thing I thought is I need more God. And I was like, where
Hmm.
do I go to get more God? Is the church. But then unfortunately, the church wasn't educated about it, the one I was going to at the time. And honestly, they kind of pushed me away a little bit, not knowing what to do.
Hmm.
It's just a lack of education, nothing personal. But then it
Yes.
almost made me feel like I wasn't good enough for the church and I wasn't good enough for God, which
Hmm.
was more detrimental to me than just struggling with what I was struggling with.
Yes.
And that's why we're here.
Yeah. Amen.
That's the reason for this podcast, is exactly that. We're both Christians. We both have behavioral health backgrounds, and that's what this podcast is about. It's about getting the word out that mental health is part of our normal health.
Yeah.
Trying to educate churches and pastors and just everybody that mental health is just a part of life, and it's not a part of, like you said, a part of the, not, it's not apart from the church and from God and our beliefs. It's just part of who we are, being healthy. One of the things I say a lot is the healthier we are, the healthier the body of Christ is.
Yes.
And being healthy mentally is part of that pursuit.
Definitely.
Yeah, absolutely.
So
100%
so
agree.
yes. Yeah.
And growing up in the Black community, there was definitely a stigma about mental health. So nobody came forward, and you would see a person acting a certain way. And when I was growing up, it's like, they're a little off.
Mm.
They're crazy. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's what we
They're
do. We put a label
shell
on
shocked.
people.
The ones that had gone to Vietnam, like my dad,
Mm.
when they came back, they said, oh, they're shell shocked. Now we know it's PTSD.
Yeah, that's good.
But back then, it was like, oh, they're shell shocked. So one of the big reasons why I wanted to go to school and study behavior, because I wanted to be able to understand,
Mm.
especially people in my past, why did you do what you did? And being able to study behavior, it gave me peace. It
Yeah.
really did. It gave me peace. And I realized a lot of things were not personal,
Mm.
even though I was personally a part of it. It wasn't personal. It wasn't anything wrong that I had done. The person that hurt me did not seek help,
Mm.
would not seek help. Okay? And didn't want anyone to know what was going on, because we can pretend in public
Yeah.
real good, but it's about when the door to the home closes and
Mhm.
what goes on behind closed doors. So that was the biggest inspiration for me to go to college and study behavioral health.
One of the things that and you guys work with both mental health and addiction, correct?
Yeah, it kind of usually goes hand in hand.
And that's what I was going to say. Sometimes um, when people look at an addict, um, don't understand that addiction is nothing but self medication of a mental health problem.
Yes.
Usually, that's what addiction is.
Yeah.
It's no. I don't think anybody wants to be addicted to something where they can't have control and lose everything in their lives, which is usually what happens. Usually, addiction is undiagnosed and self-medicated um, mental health issues. So I'm glad, and sometimes in the worldly way of mental health, those go separate. So I'm glad that they're being addressed in unison because they are very interconnected.
Yes.
Yeah, we always say that the addiction usually is not the problem, it's usually their
Mhm.
solution to their problem.
Right.
So it's just a way,
Right.
it's
Correct.
their coping mechanism of what they've learned or what they've been taught by somebody else or by themselves. And that's what we try to teach them to do is just try to find healthier coping mechanisms instead of using alcohol, drugs, or something that's actually
Mm-hmm.
detrimental to them and not going to help their. A lot of times, it at some point maybe it helped their mental health, but it's really at a different point contributing to their mental health too after
Right.
so
It's
much
just a
use.
band-aid.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
yeah, you always have those dual diagnoses, which are like
Yes.
addiction and mental health, or it's multiple mental health things that they're struggling with, and it's like,
Mm-hmm.
but it's hard to take it all away at one time, and we understand that,
Right.
we can't just remove
Mm-hmm.
it without replacing it without, with something better or something healthier. Because if you
Right.
remove something without replacing it, they're going to have a, feeling of emptiness or something, a void
Oh.
in there, and we have to make sure that they
Mm-hmm.
fill it with something healthy or something
Right.
that God has given them, which is healthy. Because if they don't,
Yes.
they're going to still be struggling with it. Maybe something different, but still, something similar at the same time.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Jacob, we really thank you for sharing your story, sharing your ministry. Um, and it sounds like it's a great ministry. We had more like that, we will have more people that are being touched and are being helped.
Is there anything about the ministry that we haven't asked you about that you want to tell us about?
I think we covered a lot of it. Just really, if you guys need help or looking for resources or you're listening to this podcast, don't be afraid to reach out to somebody. And if you have been struggle with mental health yourself or addiction, don't be scared to go and help other people, because the best person to help somebody is somebody who's gone through it. And the best
Mhm.
way that we can build the awareness is actually just all work together and start talking about it and make it normalized and not a stigma that we have to kind of work around or deal with. And the more we all work together, the more we talk about it, the more we help each other, the more healing we're going to see. And
Right.
it's not just for our loved ones, but it's for other people's loved ones. And really, there's a purpose being filled in just helping people and just loving them where they're at. Even a lot of people, we are
Mhm.
faith based, but a lot of people we help are actually
Mhm.
struggling with their faith or struggle with God or are
Right.
not Christians, and that's okay. We're not trying to just find Christians who are struggling. It's just
Mhm.
anybody. Really meet them where they're at and try
Mhm.
to help them. But just
Right.
keep in mind, like people who are struggling or that you judge quickly, they could be struggling with something that's unseen that you don't even know about. And for
Mhm.
you just to judge them or put a label on them could actually hurt them more. Or if you reject them or make fun of them or you just talk about them, that's not helping come up with a solution. So what we want to try to do is just help find solutions, help create more resources, help create more awareness. And the more we
Mhm.
all work together, the healthier communities we're going to live in. And
Mhm.
even your kids, a lot of times you think, oh, my kid's
Mhm.
fine because they're young. But if we could start educating our kids while they're young, how to express their emotions, how to talk about things, how not to
Yes.
be scared at things. And even if you're a parent listening and you find yourself getting mad at your kid or yelling at your kid or getting upset at your kid and making them think that they're doing something wrong, try to find a different way to approach that, because they may be scared and you may be actually making them or conditioning them later on in life to not talk about stuff, to hold stuff
Right.
in, to isolate. So the more we could just get our families and communities and our kids to communicate and talk about things and express how they, express how they feel. Like if you have a kid, I encourage getting them to journal while they're young, talking to them
Mhm.
about the hard things, not just the happy things. Also, if
Right.
they're playing sports, teach them how to lose like they win. Don't always just make it
Mhm.
about winning or get upset if they don't win or mad or yell at them or put so much pressure on them, because
Right.
mental health isn't just for the person who's um, just struggling and getting bullied and is really depressed and on the street corner. We had a high school student a couple weeks ago. He was a star athlete. He ended up creating a social media video saying how he can't keep up with the pressure and how he doesn't want to keep being
Mm.
somebody who he's not. Then he went home and took his own life. So
Oh
a
my
lot of
God.
times, just even these high performers, these kids that you think are doing really good, the popular kids
Mhm.
in school, there's a whole different pressure on them, but nobody knows how to express themselves and nobody could feel comfortable being who they really are in
Right.
their own skin. And I think just allowing people just to be who they are and just accepting them for that and trying to educate them on how to have healthy coping mechanisms when they're younger will prevent a lot of this suicide, will prevent a lot of these bullying and school problems, and create more empathy. So that's the only tip I could really say about if you guys are listening, just really think about others, try to have more empathy. And, it's one of those things that kind of goes back, and it's not like the extreme, but honestly, if you're not trying to be part of the solution, you could be part of the problem.
The
So,
problem. Right.
yeah.
Mhm. Well, to our listeners, know that the link to Story Ministry will be in our description. Churches, if you want to bring this ministry to your church,
Yeah.
contact Jacob. We're going to put all the information there. We are so grateful to have you.
Yeah.
This has been so awesome because, again, I didn't know this existed.
Right.
Yeah, and I appreciate you guys having me, definitely. And even for churches, sometimes I think, oh, we don't want to bring another ministry into our church. It's actually just empowering your church to have a ministry.
Hmm.
Right? For
Right.
always not to attend, just be in a church and ministry and your church. Yeah, if you suggest and be the church, your church and your ministry. So definitely appreciate you guys having me today, and I really hope this helps some people. And I look forward to hopefully getting back with you guys in the future or being a guest once
Oh, yeah,
again.
absolutely.
Yes.
The door is always open.
All right.
Thank
Well, I
you,
appreciate
Thank you
y'all.
so much and have a blessed day.
My pleasure. Y'all too. Bye now.
Thank you.
We are so grateful that you joined us today for this discussion. The link for Story Ministry will be available in the description below.
If you're in emotional distress or suicidal crisis, please call 988. If it's an emergency, dial 911 or go to the nearest emergency room. A medical professional can help give information about your particular circumstance. If someone you know is in emotional distress or suicidal crisis and you have their contact information, you call 911 or take them to the nearest emergency room so that they can get help. Remember, 988.
We encourage you to subscribe to our podcast for more inspiring interviews and insights. Follow us on social media platforms to stay connected and join the conversation on mental health and resilience.
Remember, let us continue to support one another on this journey.
And don't forget to thrive. Have a great day. Bye.